Okay, I'm going to be doing a different kind of video today. I'm going to be talking about the Artist's Way weeks 1 through 3. Currently, I'm actually in week 7 of the process, and I'm at an Airbnb right now doing a little self-retreat because my 30th birthday is actually in 2 days from now. So the reason I want to try painting while I'm doing this video is just that I actually wrote a script for my last video about the introduction of the Artist's Way, and I kind of have a script for this video as well, but I honestly didn't have a lot of fun recording it. It made editing super easy as compared to my first video where I'm just like rambling at the camera my first week as an artist. That one was much harder to edit because I had to edit it down quite a lot. So for this video, I have a script, but I want to paint while I do it rather than talk to the camera. I think that'll just be a lot easier for me and hopefully more fun for you all. I have a lot of B-roll that I shot as well during weeks 1 through 3, so I'm sure that'll be in here as well. And so, yeah, that's it. Let's see. Let's talk about what I'm going to paint. So first of all, I have a couple of these mini panels that I've been saving up for quite a long time. I think I bought these actually the last time I did the Artist's Way 2 years ago. So last night I just gessoed it, and then I went outside and I have been just doing some sketches. And this one is just down looking at the water. There's this tree here with the rope, and it's holding up this bridge that is not bridge, it's a dock that's not in season right now. So I actually think that this part of the drawing is really cool. Initially I was drawn to this, but this is like really drawing my attention right now. So I think I'm going to focus the painting on that portion. And I probably need to go look down there again just to fill in some of the blanks because I want to paint this mostly from memory because I think that'll be a good experiment for me. To be honest, I am really afraid to paint again right now, and I'm trying to just let go of that fear and do it anyways. It's been a while since I painted. I guess I made a painting last March, but that was the first one I'd done in like a couple of years. So yeah, I don't know, this will be a bit of a push for me. So I also want to say, if you haven't started the Artist's Way yet, or you haven't watched my introduction video, I probably recommend you stop here and go watch that first, just because it'll give you a good primer on what the book is about and what you need to do in order to work through it, including the morning pages and the artist dates. And I also talk in that video about who Julia Cameron is, the author, and about how much she talks about God in the introduction and just throughout the book. If you're not into that concept, it's going to take some getting used to, and I just offer some ideas about how you could think about it. So watch that if you haven't yet, and if you are doing the Artist's Way right now, I think this will be hopefully just like a nice companion to you as you do the process, but I think repeating it will help me as well. I'm going to do my best to summarize the key points of each chapter, and I'm also going to share some personal anecdotes as we go and talk about some of the tasks. But I'm actually going to talk about the morning pages just in one lump in the beginning, because since this is my second time doing the Artist's Way, I actually have gone and looked at my prior morning pages. I have some things that I observed that I want to share back. It's kind of, I guess, uncomfortable to do so, but I feel like it'll maybe just help show that growth is possible with the morning pages, and kind of they do prompt you into action, and I think the examples that I show will be evidence of that. So I actually started doing the morning pages back in October, so it was like about a month prior to starting the Artist's Way. So I actually built up a pretty good practice doing that before I had started. My routine tends to be that I just wake up in the morning, I brush my teeth, hopefully, and make some coffee, and then I get started on my pages, and I just still have my pajamas on. Although, like, honestly, this is something maybe I want to change in the future, because I've noticed that I tend to just stay in my pajamas like a little too long, maybe. It definitely gets me to my pages, but I don't know. That's maybe something I want to change. While I'm writing my pages, I have a candle lit, I drink my coffee, and I tend to do that for just about 40 minutes because I don't know, I find the whole 3-page limit to be pretty difficult, but if I write for 40 pages, I feel like I've gotten what I needed to out of the process. So that's just me, and I encourage you to figure out what works for you. I find that doing morning pages gives me a lot of space to just explore my ideas, whatever I am feeling about the day and what I need to do. And I find that my mind is just racing a lot less afterwards. I'm not going to tell you what I wrote about recently, because obviously that is not something you're advised to do, but it's been 2 years since I last did The Artist Way, and I feel like I can share a little bit about what I was thinking about then, in hopes that you might resonate with it, or it'll give you some idea of topics you want to reflect on yourself. So personally, I can really struggle with getting caught up in the details and thinking too far ahead. But I do believe that the pages can help move you into action. And I think these 4 examples from October 1st to November 7th, 2022 will help show that. So first, I think it's interesting how morning pages can help you notice how you think. I talked a decent amount about how I was having a difficult time focusing, and I noticed my thoughts changing quickly, and eventually I started considering whether I have ADHD. It was about 6 months later that I found a new therapist, and they were able to diagnose me with ADHD. I don't know that I would have considered that so deeply before. In my second example, I talk about how I was unsure about my career in product design and that I wanted to pursue art full time. And obviously this took a lot of work to get to this point, but I'm here doing that now, so that's really exciting. And the third example is that I expressed both fear and desire about wanting to paint again. And in week 3, I actually purchased supplies, some of which I'm using now. And even though I haven't painted in a while now, again, this is like, it's getting me to do this again. And hopefully I can keep up with this practice now, or, maybe I decide that painting is just not for me anymore, and that's okay too. And then lastly, I really expressed a desire to just escape into the woods. And I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. I think it's kind of idealistic and it would be really nice, but I recognize that that wouldn't actually help me become an artist. I can, though, however, spend time at an Airbnb like I'm doing now. Morning pages can also be a really good space to just affirm yourself. So one affirmation that I had was that there's no pressure to create anything finished or even to show anyone. The point is to play, learn, and figure out what I like. One other thought I wanted to share, which actually goes back to the introduction, I had a thought about this quote, which is leap and the net will appear. Given more thought to this, I think part of what it's saying is that you are aiming to let go of the result and give in to what appears. You don't know what that net is going to be, but it will be there to catch you. In a way, it's kind of like this painting right now. I really don't know how this is going to look in the end. I have, an idea in my head of what it could look like, but we'll see where my skill and the paint takes me. Okay, so there we have it, just a finished ground, and I'm done talking about the morning pages now, so I'm going to go down to the water and look at this scene again, And I think I will also take this sketch down there and add in some maybe more detail in a different color where I need it. And then I'll come back in and work on this scene. Okay, so the goal of week 1, which is recovering a sense of safety, is to express your creativity with less fear. And there are 3 key points to this chapter. So, number 1, Cameron talks a lot about shadow artists, which are people who want to be artists but did not pursue it. And maybe that's because they didn't receive early encouragement as children or were taught to choose more sensible careers. Personally, I had encouragement enough to go to art school, but I did choose graphic design because I thought that it would just be a more stable career. At that time, I really had this idea that being a painter, for example, was just going to be, I wouldn't have enough security to do that. So, yeah, I'm really challenging that thought now, or have learned to challenge that thought in the past few years, and, I'm doing things differently now, so. The second point is that you need to uncover your core negative beliefs and combat them with affirmations, which are positive self-statements. It's not an either-or situation. You can be an artist and succeed financially. I'm actually listening to a book, Creative Visualization, right now by Shakti Gawain. I'm actually finding this book to be really helpful just in general for having a more positive mindset. But a couple of things that I found useful in her describing affirmations is that they should be present tense. So it's more like not I will be a successful artist. It's I am a successful artist. You want to make it in the present tense. And also that they should be positive statements. That book is also pretty woo-woo, but personally I'm really enjoying getting to know a more spiritual side of myself. And if that interests you, I do recommend checking out that book. Okay, and then lastly, Cameron has some recommendations, which are to take play seriously and go slowly like your marathon training. Give yourself permission to be a beginner, to be a bad artist, and to seek progress over perfection. She'll go into a lot more detail in these in future chapters. I feel like these recommendations are the antithesis of quality over quantity, which is the rule that you tend to hear about your portfolio or when you're applying for a job. But I think the whole point is that you have to create a lot in order to get to the quality that you want. You can't expect to be a master when you're only a beginner. So at this stage, it's really more about just producing a lot and not trying to let that idea of what you really want it to turn out get ahead of you and stop you from creating in the first place. Moving on to the task, one of them that I did is the Hall of Monsters, and I want to share 3 experiences that I wrote about just because I think that these might be relatable in some way, and yeah, I don't know, I hope it's valuable in some way. So for the first experience, I was surprised with how much emotion I felt thinking about my high school art teacher. She was usually supportive of my work, but she often talked down to my other peers or complained to me about them, and they really struggled with it. And I think this made me fearful and untrustworthy of her positive comments on my work. And I didn't think I deserved to be treated any differently. So, yeah, I didn't realize I still needed to heal from that experience. I followed this up with writing a letter to the editor about this and asked my partner to mail it to me.
What I like at the end of this is that I wrote, "Her trauma is not yours to hold. You can trust others' positive comments about your art. Their negative judgment is none of your business.
My second experience I wrote about in my first Hall of Monsters, actually. So in college, I took a fibers class and I had screen printed this repeating pattern for my final project. I probably spent more than 30 hours on it and I was really proud of what I made. But during the critique, a classmate said that it wasn't enough for my work to be beautiful and that it had to be political too. The class didn't necessarily agree, but that interaction really shook my confidence for a long time. But I've since heard from multiple artists that beauty really is enough of a purpose, and I think I've healed from this one. And my last example is that when I got my first job out of college as a graphic designer, a peer who wanted the job said that he thought I got it because they wanted a woman for diversity purposes. I was really confused by that statement, especially because he was a person of color. Um, but truthfully, this is just one example of where I wonder if I got an opportunity because of my privilege as a white person or as a pretty woman instead of my skill, which really makes me question my reality. And to be honest, this is one that I still struggle with. Do you relate to these experiences at all? To show how those negative experiences can be converted into affirmations, here are 3 examples. Number 1, I believe in positive comments on my work. Number 2, I create what I want, and that is enough. Number 3, I am awarded opportunities because I am skilled. When I think about it, I actually have many more champions than monsters. My mom is my absolute biggest champion, though. She always encouraged me to pursue what I love, gave me all the creative supplies I could dream of as a kid, and is amazingly creative herself, which always inspires me. I wrote her a thank you letter, which really felt long overdue, and it felt really good to give her the thanks. I love the imaginary lives exercise, and I think I immediately wrote down about 15 ideas. As a side note, Cameron brings up this task again in later weeks, so maybe do hold off for now. These imaginary lives are meant to just start opening up your mind to what you could be doing and give you really good ideas for what you could do on your artist dates. Compared to the last time I did this task, I feel like I let myself dream a little bit more, and also some of these are more simple. For example, I could be a crime investigator in an alternate life, or a contestant on my favorite game show, Taskmaster. But, some of these are also achievable probably in the future. For example, being a mother, or a cat lady, and a gardener. Lastly, I had fun writing these in bubble letters because I'd forgotten how much I loved to letter like that when I was younger. Inspired by my geologist and photographer imaginary lives, I went to Carkeek Park and looked for cool rocks on the beach while taking photos as my artist date. I saw raindrops, a really beautiful rainbow, a fisherman, chatty birds, and many beautiful rocks. And I picked up a lot of them as well. I just think they're so pretty and it's really calming to look at them. I snapped a few photos as well, and on the way home, I went to the film lab and dropped off 5 rolls that I'd been collecting for over a year. I snapped a few film photos. Film photos are my luxury. Okay, I'm back now, and I filled in this drawing more, so I've got a lot more information to play with. I filled in some of the mossy areas, more of the tree background, just to give me an idea of where this skyline is and where the reflections are in the water, which is where I was really having the most hard time picturing. So yeah, that's that, and I'm ready to paint. On to week 2, recovering a sense of identity. The goal of week 2 is to connect with your personal needs, desires, and interests. I don't think I struggle to know my identity, honestly, but I do struggle to share it. There are some things I just don't share with that many people because of fear of judgment. For example, I'm bi. I'm agender, I think, but I still use she, her pronouns. But very few people who meet me would know this about me. There's a lot that I felt like I needed to hide, especially being in a corporate job. And now that I am working for myself, I am trying to practice being more open. There are 4 key points of week number 2. Number 1, your self-esteem may ebb and flow. Don't let your self-doubt spiral into self-sabotage. Counteract it with affirmations. Number 2, focus on your responsibility to yourself and be careful of who you involve yourself with. The 2 examples that she gives are poisonous playmates, which are friends who maybe blocked themselves and just might not respond very positively to you becoming unblocked. And number 2 are crazy makers. So these are people who take your time, your money, your space, etc. I think that the way Cameron describes this is pretty extreme. So I would think about like who in your life is maybe there are just elements of that, and think about how you can start creating boundaries. Number 3, explore your feelings of doubt and practice open-mindedness. Cameron likens the mind to a room, and within that room there is a door, and it's just slightly open. And on the other side of the door are all of the thoughts that you're trying not to see. And she recommends just trying to open that door slightly. And lastly, she says that attention is an act of connection and to delight in small daily miracles. If you're out on a walk, for example, just notice the small changes happening in front of you. I think her greater point here is that each moment on its own is bearable. By focusing on just what's directly around you, you can find a lot to delight in. I did the life pie exercise, and I actually think that these categories are a little odd, especially romance/adventure. I don't know, some people are aromantic, and I don't know, I feel like adventure is very different than romance to me. And also, exercise could be reframed to health, and then I wondered, like, where's community on this? What about family? Or, basically feel free to rename these or add in whatever categories feel best to you. I just did it as is, and I don't know, I think I feel least fulfilled in exercise, then play, spirituality, and friends. And actually, this is pretty similar to what it was 2 years ago, so maybe that just shows that I should be working more on those areas. I did the task to list 20 things I enjoy doing. This is one of my favorite exercises because it can just be shocking how long it's been since you've done something. And this is great inspiration for artist dates as well. Looking at my list, it had been years since I went to a movie theater by myself in the middle of the day. I actually ended up doing this for my week 6 artist date. I haven't made pretzels in years, and that's still something I've been meaning to do. And it's been a couple of months since I've sewn. Actually, I did that. Never mind. I did that a couple of weeks ago. But it's been a while since I've ran or hiked to a cool view. So just in week 2, I ended up doing 7 things that I love. Baking, because I had to make a carrot cake for Thanksgiving. I did some crochet. I took a bath. I went roller skating. I did a puzzle, listened to one of my favorite podcasts, and I took a couple of film photos. For my week 2 artist date, I went to a yarn and fabric store that I'd been meaning to go to for a really long time. I picked out a couple of yarns to crochet bandanas with as Christmas gifts, and I really enjoyed looking at all of the buttons. It reminded me of my mom too because she is just a button fanatic. And then I went to a coffee shop and I drank a London fog while I did some of the tasks, and I drew some loose sketches for a potential client. That did feel a little bit like a cheat because it was still working, but it was really nice to get out of the house, and I think that still fulfilled the need for me that week of an artist date. In week 3, recovering a sense of power, the goal is to examine your emotions, self imposed limits, and be open minded. There are 4 key points of week 3. Number 1, anger is a map to what needs changing, whether you've been betrayed or betrayed yourself. Number 2, shame can stop us from creating, sharing, and admitting dreams. To heal, it must be exposed. There's a quote here that I really liked relating to shame. We must learn that when our art reveals a secret of the human soul, those watching it may try to shame us for making it. This actually reminds me of another experience in my Hall of Monsters that I didn't share earlier. I was in about 10th grade and we had a public speaking assignment. I don't remember exactly what the prompt was, but I ended up writing a really vulnerable story about my experience with my stepdad and just how it was really difficult to adjust at first, but how he became such an important part of my life and how I really grew to love him. But someone in the class started to laugh while I was giving my speech and snickering to her peers. And I was, visibly nervous and shaking and stumbling over my words. But still, I was really proud of what I had written. I did feel like I was sharing something that was really important. And yeah, that experience just really hurt my soul for a long time. And actually, I've had a couple of experiences like that in sharing personal stories that I've written. And I'm still trying to get over that. The further point that Cameron makes about shame is that when you receive criticism, find what's useful and discard the rest. Analyze whether it brings up childhood shame. Number 3, expect that your growth will be nonlinear. Baby yourself and make time for solitude. Number 4, have you experienced any synchronicity? Synchronicity is a term coined by Carl Jung. Rather than seeing things as coincidence or serendipity, the idea is that there is, and this is a quote from Jung, that there is an intelligent and responsive universe acting and reacting in our interests. The basic idea is that if you ask for what you want, you just might get it. Another quote I like from Cameron is, "We like to pretend it is hard to follow our heart's dreams. The truth is, it is difficult to avoid walking through the many doors that will open." I think it's actually easy to avoid walking through those doors, but it's difficult on the soul. One of the exercises in week 3 is called detective work. Compared to when I did this 2 years ago, my answers are actually nearly all the same, even though these are freeform, which I think is just crazy. I definitely thought they would be more different because I had to think about my answers. They didn't really come immediately. Here are just a few of my answers. My favorite childhood toy was Marble Run. I don't know if you all played with Marble Run, but I just thought it was so much fun to connect all of the different pieces in different ways and see what happens. If I could lighten up a little, I'd let myself dance wildly in front of other people. This is just something I've never really gotten comfortable with except on rare occasion. If I weren't so stingy with my artist, I'd buy her an ergonomic keyboard and a desktop computer. I'm actually in the process of getting myself a new computer right now, so I'm really excited about that. And if it didn't sound so crazy, I'd write a fiction book about a world that is better suited for artists, perhaps even more specifically neurodivergent artists. I haven't written fiction in so long, so that task seems kind of daunting to me, but it is an idea that's been percolating in my head for a couple of months now. Another of the tasks asks you to think about who are your friends that nurture and support you. I'm not sure if I heard this story on Instagram or somewhere else, but there was someone who wanted to improve their relationship with their friends. And so they decided to put a heart emoji by the name of their phone contacts who were reliable, supportive friends. And they vowed to respond quickly to those people whenever they messaged. So for this task, I decided to do something similar, and I put a sparkle next to my contacts, who for me are reliable, supportive friends. For my artist date in week 3, I went to a free art museum called The Fry. I didn't really love the main collection they had on display, but I was really impressed with the artist's volume of work and the continuity of the collection, which was all produced in 2024. I would like to get to a stage where I can produce a themed collection of work too. It's really exciting to think about my work being in a gallery someday. The other collection they had from Mary Ann Peters was really cool too. There was this specific display where you had to work further out in order to see what was really going on, and that was really neat. I hadn't seen anything like it before. I also enjoyed the salon room. I just love old landscapes, and there were some really interesting portraits as well that just didn't seem like they would have come from that time period. The shop was fun to look at too. They sell a lot of local artists' work, and it made me hopeful that someday I could sell there too. To be honest, I don't think that my work in weeks 1 through 3 was that groundbreaking for me. I felt differently the first time I did it, but I think because I have done this work before and I tend to think a lot about this kind of stuff in therapy and my day to day, it just didn't do as much for me this time around. But I do feel like since week 3, I've been changing more and more rapidly, and I do think there is benefit to doing this work and evaluating all of these different circumstances that end up preventing you from creating work. One thing I really struggled with in this time was how much I was working, which was really almost always. Being a new full-time artist, I feel a lot of responsibility for my time, and I do feel a need to be productive, and it's complicated because the work that I'm doing is work that I love and I want to do it all the time. But that kind of results in this bind where everything and nothing felt like self-care, including doing the artist way. And going on artist dates were fun and inspiring, but I really also felt the pile of to-dos increasing in my head. I was kind of forced to slow down though starting in week 4 because we started traveling for the holidays and spending a lot of time with family. And week 4, as a spoiler, is also the reading deprivation week. So that does just force you to stop working in some ways. I'll share more about that in a future video where I talk about weeks 4, 5, and 6. If you have any questions or want to tell me about your experience with the artist way thus far, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And as for this video, I have not quite finished this painting. I'm still not that happy with it, but I'm trying not to let perfection take over. And you know what? Maybe this is good enough for now. And lastly, if you could like this video and subscribe to my channel, it would mean the world to me. And until next time, I hope you live creatively. Bye.